Hey, got confused how your form got submitted? So no need to worry. In this video, I'll be showing you how you can create a HTML form in exactly the same way that you have seen here. And also I'll be explaining you the attributes that are needed in the HTML form. So without wasting any time, let's start the video. But before jumping into the code, let me give you a brief about HTML form and what is the actual use of HTML forms. So HTML forms are used to collect your user input on a web page or maybe a website, and they contain various input elements like your text field, usually for your names and all. Then it may have checkboxes, radio buttons, as well as buttons to simply allow users to enter and submit information. So as you have seen, whenever you try to visit any of the websites, they first ask you to register yourself by simply entering your name, email and all. So what they do, they simply collect your information like your name, email, as here we have a sign up form. So we have input field for your name, email, password, then a login form as well, or you can have a contact me form. So this way we can have many other forms. So now let's just dive into our code and create a similar form that we have seen in that website. So I'll be suggesting you to simply open your code editor and side by side your browser so that you can also see the real-time changes. So first thing first, to have your HTML form, you need to have a form tag which will be containing all your input fields. So first, we need to have input field simply of type text. As there in this website, we simply have a simple form with our first name and the last name. So simply input of type text for the first name, then again second input with the type text again for your last name. Let's also have a line break in between. So now the first attribute would be simply your placeholder. Let's say for your first name, and here the placeholder for the second name or maybe the last name. So see, we have this placeholder for the first and the last name. Then the next thing that we can have is simply your label tag. So let's say we want to have a label for this first name, then simply it would be first name, and similarly a label for your second name. So now as we have the label, first name and the last name, we do not need this, the placeholder. So we can safely remove this. Then simply we have an interesting attribute in our label that is simply your for. So if I give some value, let's say if name for the first name and similarly a for with a value as L name for your last name. Now if in the input field, let's say if I have the ID, so if I give the same value that the for attribute have, let's say if name, then I'll be seeing an interesting thing. So now if I will click the label, the input field that is associated with that label will get active. So see, so again, so if I do the same thing with my last name label, let's say ID, then again the same value as the for attribute have, simply L name, Then again, if I click the label, so the input field that will be associated with that label will get active. See, so let's say if I give this label f name to this second input field, then if I click this, then the input field that is this, we have associated this with the first name will get active. See, so this was the use of label. Now the next attribute is simply your value. So it is simply used for giving initial values to your input field. So let's initially we want to have a value as simply John. Then again, for your last name, let's say simply Doe. So John Doe. See, we got the initial values. Then similarly, we can have one more input field in our form that is simply your submit. And let's have again a line break. So here again, in input type submit, if I want to have some initial value, let's say instead of submit, I want to have, let's say print. So see, the initial value that we gave is simply print, that is with the help of value attribute. But if we remove this, by default, the value of type submit is simply submit. See, so now the next attribute that we can have with our input field is simply a name attribute. So let's say we have for the first name simply first name, and here for the last name simply a name attribute as last name. So what is the use of this name attribute? So when you will submit your form in the backend, where your form will get submitted, there you will see these values with the label as simply first name and the last name that you gave in your name attribute. So for this thing, I'll be showing you in this website as I don't have any backend right now. So here they have already backend page, and simply this action attribute gives the location of the page where you want to submit your form. So here they have the address of the page simply actionpage.php. So here they have name as simply f name and l name for the last name. So now if I give the value as simply Virat for the first name, and let's say we have this for the last name, and now if we submit, see, it says submitted form data and your input was received as simply f name, that is your value that is contained by the name attribute, and simply l name, that is this with the value that we entered in the input field, that is Virat and Kohli. So this way you can simply create a form by using these attributes, and these attributes like name will be more helpful when you will be dealing with the backend part as well. So in my next video, I'll be creating a registration form or maybe a login and a sign up form. So yes, that's it for this video. Hope you understood about forms in a much better way. So see you all in the next one. Till then, take care.